As many of those who follow my social medias know, I have fallen down the Rimworld rabbit hole, and the addiction has consumed me. And wanting to try out new things from a storytelling perspective, here we are, starting a new Rimworld colony. While sure there are many better Rimworld players out there, I want to make myself dive into the deep end and get better acquainted with more extreme scenarios. And what's better than playing on a 100% polluted planet? Except every tile isn't 100% polluted, but the idea stays. For the pre-prep, I'm going to be on a slightly modified Strive to Survive Randy random playthrough, just adding a couple options to make things more interesting. And for generating world, the default name is Agony. I feel the game is trying to tell me something. I decided to settle down on a mountainous tropical rainforest biome. Meet our three starting protagonists, Lainey, Salas, and Mila, all of whom I gave gas mask, a helpful reprieve from the sadistic overlords up high, sending three unfortunate souls to a death world on a cusp of collapse, all in an effort to survive. Will they survive this hellish planet, or will the remnants of humanity's hubris claim even more victims? Let's find out. Our three protagonists crash land in a valley nestled between two massive mountains, an oasis of sorts from the sea of pollution. I was expecting more pollution to start with, but this will do nicely. The colonists begin by chopping down the forest around them, just for lodging, as I scour the map. Our starting food supply managed to get scattered in the wind, and near our starting position is an ancient danger, whose bounty proves enticing. I also make sure to get some rice planted to get started on a more long-term sustenance plan, along with mining into the nearby mountainside. The rest of the first couple days saw the creation of a paste dispenser and a dining room. Sure, the mood debuff will stink, but long-term, we'll probably have to move our operations indoors. Between the toxic fallout, hostile neighbors, and the polluted smog, before long, a wave of despair will fall on our base, all in an attempt to wipe out hope from our dwindling oasis. I also saw to the creation of some spike trap hallways for our flanks, deter any would-be assailants, though this is a temporary reprieve, as long-term I'll transition to my preferred kill box style. The rest of the first week was not too eventful, only finishing the initial blueprints to our base, along with getting research underway. I started researching a toxifying generator, given this world is already past its point of no return, but that won't work out in the long term. More later. During a scavenging mission, Mila was hunted by a desperate warg, starving with the remaining food supply dwindling. I funneled the dangerous beast back to our base, where Lainey and Salas could subdue the beast, but at the cost of a finger. Not even 4 days in, and we're already down an appendage, a foreboding sign as to our inevitable fates. But despite our abhorrent start, the warg will at least feed us for a few days. Randy taketh, and Randy giveth. With things starting to settle, and having survived a few days, our colonists are feeling ready to settle with a colony name. I named the faction Polutopia, given the entire pollution shtick, and I did think about changing the settlement name, until I saw hope in the name. Olhinho is the Portuguese diminutive of Olho, which is I. We live in a world of pollution, destruction, and death, and yet within our eyes, we see hope, as salvation in these dark times. And not too long afterwards, a raccoon was driven to depravity, ready to attack anything it saw. Yet it ran past our colonists, either in fear, desperation, confusion, we do not know, only that we shall nourish in its sustenance. Deep down, the call of the ancient complex beckons me. The colonists over the next day or two continued the fortification of the colony's defenses, whilst continuing the deforestation. Even though the world continues its existence on the brink, hope yet finds its way through, as a pollux tree bloomed near our base, nature attempting to heal its carcinogen of aeons past. And not too long afterwards, a boon from the heavens. A new potential recruit falls from the sky, which we rescue and tend to. Sure, Long is a pyromaniac, but she is very good at mining, and if we are to survive in our fallout shelter, we will need as many allies as we can get. Long wished to leave the colony, but we will need as much help as we can, so I had Lainey attempt to arrest her. She resisted, but a good bonk on the head sorts anything out. So now Salas can have some company as she spends long hours toiling at the research lab. The next few days continues at a slower pace, as one by one the colony begins to shape its mold. The defensive walls of our perimeter begins to shield us from the dangers of the outside world, and we get our first rice harvest to sustain us for a bit longer. And Randy thought it'd be fun to simulate the Iowa summer by sending in a heat wave. Thanks, mate. Really appreciate that one. Nothing a few wet logs can't fix. Don't question Rimworld logic, okay? A few days in, and we receive a distress signal. His guards were killed, and he is running for his life. By a rat. I do not want to know what he did to piss off the rodent overlords, but here we are, harboring the praetor whom isn't a Malthus, as the rodent makes a beeline to our base. He gets lost at first, and tries knocking on our door, but there isn't something a good mousetrap can't fix. And for our efforts, we receive some honor that I don't plan on going down the sidecast route this playthrough. And for our troubles, we get a boon of a solar flare. Thanks, Randy. During an expedition out for more lost food, Laney comes across a peculiar mech, a relic from a bygone time, perhaps a cause or a symptom to the world's dismay. Regardless, its bounty beckons. Having some simple servants to take the burden off her backs would be great, but that will be for a bit. I managed to get the toxifier generator researched. In a polluted world, well, that's a little more. Only to find out just now it will only work if there's stuff to pollute. Okay, back to the drawing boards. At this point, the colonists are starting to get moody, and they're not a fan of having to share a room, so I began construction of a new housing complex, something temporary before they begin living inside a vault, and a +1 before long joins our colony. But these menial tasks take up so much of our day, and our resources are dwindling, so it is time. And I sent a few colonists out to the world to do some target practice at the machine. We don't have many good combatants, so it'll take a few days to destroy. During the night of the prolonged deconstruction, some rabid raccoons decided to visit the map, so I had to take a pause in my operation to get everyone back to the safety of our base. So, easy lunch. But this little faux pas had me think. We are going to need to stockpile food, so the first room I plotted out in the base will be a freezer once I get more help. Despite our best efforts, our efforts have yet to borne any fruit, and it remains to be a struggle, and in the ancient danger lies the apple of temptation, questioning what forbidden fruit lies within. Before we dive into danger, the advancement in automation beckons first. One by one, the colonists fired into the machine before engulfing the area in an inferno, and a signal to summon a machine and its former master. It is thankfully just a scyther, but with my lack of protection, it could be a fatal encounter. But to reap the rewards, we must first tackle the danger head on. By letting the danger tackle us first. The spike hallway does its job, but its defenses are already proving inadequate for more substantial threats, so that will need to be worked on before the real threats start coming. But the most important thing, Laney can now take the first step towards the desires of automation, reducing the human aspect and advancing towards salvaging this land. Instead of other titular research projects, I have my pawns beeline the mechs, and begin the long gestation process that comes with baby robots. And a trade caravan made a pit stop with some really nice things I can't afford, but I did notice everyone came with gas masks. While we may be fortunate to have our pocket, outside the shield is a world of despair, and amidst our mining project, Long finally joins, expediting the burrowing process. And right afterwards, Sammy requests help from a nearby prisoner camp. I am willing to take any help I can at this point, so I sent a party off to help. It was thankfully a quick jaunt to the camp, and the only person protecting Sammy was a lone impid. Well, it doesn't take much effort given impids, so welcome to the team, Sammy. And some good news back at the base, the cooler is ready to go, and now I may begin expanding into the mountain. This may not be Dwarf Fortress, but we can all pretend we yearn for the mines. Also, Boomrat joins at some point. I like Boomrats, but not when my base is made of wood. And the first mech is born into the world. There lies a snake on everyone's shoulder, whispering sweet temptations to everyone's ears. And mine is whispering, open the ancient danger, and plunder what's inside, which is a Scorcher and a Militor. Honestly, I was afraid there would be centipedes in there, but 2 persona weapons. Randy, why are you being this nice? I tried leading the mechs back to our base, but our base is just outside the mech's allotted range. I just partitioned the section off for my mechs, and I used the bolt action rifle to pick the robots from afar. Is it efficient? No. But considering I don't want my colonists to be engulfed in a hellfire, I'll take the slow and steady route, retreating behind my walls when the living flamethrower gets too close for comfort. Took the better part of a full day, but eventually the Militor and Scorcher fell. With the plunders of the tomb ripe for the taking, I had the pawns take the weapons out of the tomb first, in case the sleeping residents are hostile. I really don't fancy having a Persona Monado going through 3 colonists faced. Meanwhile, during the prep work, I got the workshop up and running to hopefully get started on the upgrades. But the number one priority right now is opening up the caskets, in hopes of new colonists. The risk is there. They could all be heavily fortified soldiers and easily wipe out our colonists, but any help could be a boon. Milla opens up the tomb in fear and... they're all in peaceful condition. My stupidity is once again rewarded. 2 of the colonists are down, so they can be recruited easily, though Tatiana would probably be a liability given, well, everything. Meme? Okay, that is funny. He would be nicknamed after ideological beliefs. I had the 2 down colonists be rescued, and I had O'Connell and Crowbar be arrested. They were the most tantalizing of the prospects, so into the prison they go. And they are both easy recruits at least. And Meme joins. Huzzah! And not too long afterwards, Tatiana also joins our band of misfits. Not so huzzah, but any help will help. I also begin finally digging into the mountainside, and at the end of the first recording session, our progress is swift. Starting from nothing, our colony is starting to take shape, but still, the threats of the world persist. Randy has been oddly too nice, and I fear what games he wants to play. My next priority for the colony is our energy supply. There is only so much wood we can harvest from the map, and the polluted trees can only grow so fast. And not too long afterwards, a warg decides to join. I would have preferred a boomalope, but hey, at least free meat. Progress on the prisoners are swift, and O'Connell joins before too long, which I have him bond with a Zeus hammer. And the progress of the new bedrooms are also pretty quick, and we finally have our first raid. We are 2/3 the way through summer, and Randy has finally sent his first raid. Sometimes Randy is bloodthirsty and sends 3 raids simultaneously, and other days, Randy falls asleep at the wheel. Today, Randy decides to drive the car into a wall. I have no idea what happened, but when I checked on the raid a second time, apparently some child soldiers also wandered onto the map, which the furries put down. Okay then. They begin their assault, and they all just charge right through the traps, avoiding most of them. Turns out they're all just nimble or lucky. Oh well, one furry is put down, and the other we capture. The world can be harsh, the ravages of time always catches up. The keeper of the clock laughs at our efforts to prolong our lives, and he catches up with Tatiana, who develops cancer in her lung. But from despair, hope always finds a way back, as Crowbar joins. There is always a danger about growing a colony too quickly. In the matter of 30 minutes, our colony size doubles, and so does our food consumption. Sorry Warg, this is for the greater good. I immediately plant more fields of crops, but deep down, I know this won't be enough to starve off the hunger pangs. And I also get an easy quest of building a monument. It looks ugly, but never question the aristocracy's aesthetic decisions, and Lady decides to have a break and hide in her room. Well, there are worse breaks to have. It appears Randy has finally woke up and is now sending in the raiders. Only these drop bars are scattered all over the place. Into the wall of spikes they go. And to compound the stress, acidic smog has settled over the region. Okay then. I finally remembered at this point to open the treasure chest inside the Ancient Danger, which relinquishes a Resurrector Serum. A very nice find. I honestly think this is the best danger I've ever found, though it is rather ironic that Tatiana is the one to open it, given her soon-to-be fate. Our colony continues to grow, also on the robotic front, as the gestation is complete and an Egrahand is formed. If there's something the last raid has shown, our spike hallways aren't going to be suffice for when Randy decides to send in the larger raids. I also got constructing a kill box and a proper spike hallway for down the line. Sure, it'll be a major resource sink, but for long term, any help is appreciated. And speaking of long-term plans, I also began the proper hollowing out of the base, making more bedrooms, along with a storage and research base. And geothermal is now online, which will make for a much more sustainable long-term energy solution. And another boom rat joins. You know, I love having ticking time bombs hanging out at the base. Sometimes in life, we are all faced with difficult decisions, and under these difficult situations we are put to the test. Tatiana goes on another mental break, and at this point, I know the signs are on the wall. Once she is done in her days, I remove the kidney, then begin end-of-life care. It is always a hard thing, losing a colonist, a pain that will persist for a while. But the funny thing about life, when the going gets rough, and the pain stings the most, sometimes miracles happen. A new joy finds their way into the colony. Immediately after the funeral, Hitush joins the colony. And now, the colony begins to slow down, as slowly it gathers its identity, and the southern killbox continues its gestation. Some beggars showed up for some silver, and this isn't a decrepit run. I don't want to go down the war suggestions path yet. I just send them off with some silver. With the next block of housing done, I continue the expansion, for soon I plan on having everyone live inside. You know, maybe using wood for a trap hallway isn't the smartest of choices, since boom rats tend to go boom catching it on fire. A trader stops by the same day, which I use to offload my junk, still donning gas masks, so the outside world isn't faring much better. With the geothermal generator running, I finally remember to disassemble the wood fire generators, and my miners begin mining out some plasteel, something that will help out longer term. And with that, the southern killbox is good to go, which comes the all-important step of disassembling the old hallway, and life continues to fight against the corruption. A second Pollux tree has sprouted, and peace continues across this humble abode and God damn it, not again! With that action done, I continue to abandon our industrial age reliance and embrace a more green future, echoing the progress of our ideal futures and boom rats! Please stop wandering into our base! Our graduation from the outside exterior to the more defendable interior continues to progress swiftly. The bedrooms are slated to come inside, and with the southern fortifications done, I began work on the northern side, snaking around the polluted and muddied landscape. It isn't pretty, but it will have to do, so long as the base has a clear way to go, and microelectronics are ready. The constructoids continue to fortify the base, but at this point, we are throttled by our lack of compact machinery, so this little node of machinery shall be used on another geothermal vent, to meet our colony's expanding energy demands, especially with the pincer turrets. Entrenched in the relics of the past, another beacon of hope, moving away from the dependencies of pollution towards a brighter tomorrow. However, the blight of despair always has a nasty tendency of returning. I next began to reallocate my resources into the more prominent storage bin to make sure the crafting process is more efficient, and Randy decides to set up a component mining camp nearby, and given I'm out of components at this point, I begin setting up a raiding party. Desperation begins to bring out the worst of us, once peaceful beings driven to violence just to survive. The small colony was a bunch of tribals, which we were outnumbered, but bows aren't very effective against guns, though my flanking game doesn't prove very worthwhile. Will prove helpful in the coming days. Also, I take a prisoner of war, Lobster. I promise we won't boil him, contrary to standard Rimworld practices. And while my party was out, a small raid of Neanderthals came to raid. Our colony wealth must have plummeted because only 2 came out to raid. Make that 1. Randy must not be awake at the wheel today. Everyone makes it back to camp? Oh, long as having a sad wander. Yeah, just sad wander back to camp. Everything will be alright. Just sleep it off. It works for me whenever I drink too much of the espresso. With the plunders of war return, it is cause for celebration. Another day triumphing against the harsh outside world. No long. Celebrating does not mean you need to set Mila's bed on fire. At least with our components, the high-tech research bench can finally be assembled, and everyone has now finally relocated their abode indoors. The old dorms can now be deconstructed for more planting room. I noticed during the overnight the temperatures dropped below 0 Celsius. Yes, despite me being from Iowa, I play with Celsius. Sue me. I began working on an indoor hydroponic workshop, but to be honest, long term I never end up going into hydroponics. Meh, another camp popped up. This time it's a bunch of corn. Our food supply is dwindling, and in a desperate ploy for sustenance, I sent out another raiding party. When the goings get desperate, the need to feed ourselves, we sometimes have to forego our basic humanity just to sustain another day. The base is in a comfy spot, comes with a free battery and turret. Sure, it is easily defendable, but flanking comes in helpful. To the victor comes the spoils, including the signature Iowa trademark, and a helpful little tip I like doing in my raids: deconstruct any power, claim and uninstall batteries, and you get a free turret and battery. I'm surprised not many go for this trick. Back on the home front, the northern kill box is nearing its completion. Just have to put in the deterrent traps, along with some turrets, and it's good to go. At least now we can survive a bit longer on the unhappy pace. No, O'Connell, you don't need to eat our food supply even shorter. Funny thing, as the colony continues its expansion, I start hollowing out rooms for an eventual prison relocation and rec room, but I never do that. When it comes to the pollution front, negligence breeds consequences. The Pollux tree I was dumping waste packs next to became replaced by a waste pack infestation, which I brought out of colonies to take care of. Sure, 1 mega spider made it to the base, but the clean sweeper makes for an effective distraction as the pawns gun it down. The rest of the bugs funnel themselves through the spike hallway, becoming democratized to the way of deception. During the chaos, Lobster thought it would be a good time to stage a jailbreak. No, Lobster. Back to bed with you. Needing to expand our farming operation more, the original wall separating our utopia with the harshness of the outside world came down, only for an Egrahan to hit a trap. I swear these wandering mechs have a magnetic attraction to hitting traps. Okay, back to the base you go. But with our infraction into the pollution, we begin our cleanup of the pollution, only for negligence to rear its ugly head, which will have very dire consequences soon enough. Our food situation isn't doing good, and I was ready to cease housing new colonists, only for some divine prank to fall from the sky. Will crashes down as a paralytic for the next 30 days. I would have left him to his fate, but of course he saw his son. I guess he may stay with us. And at the same time, Randy decides it'd be a good time to test our resolve and our negligence, as the quest appears simple enough: accept some waste packs, get a telescope, and free gold. I like free things, but they always say, free always comes at a price. So I casually haul the packs to the dumping grounds while awaiting the tantalizing harvest of more corn. The colonists are in a rather crappy mood, so I figure a dance party wouldn't hurt. It could lift morale in these trying times. Except, of course, we are out of steel and components, but thankfully a new camp sets up shop next door. So of course I send out a raiding party while the rest of the colony continues hauling. I do low-key enjoy raiding. The party of 3 easily ravaged the camp, though Crowbar does take a beating. It's okay, Crowbar. Take a nice nap. Back on the home front, a flash storm occurs, so everyone is on firefighting duties. Except you, Crowbar. You go get some rest. Some Thrumbos do pay a visit. Sometimes the Thrumbos decide to walk through my spike trap hallways and offer themselves free food, but not today. And in Crowbar's pain, he decides to unbury the dead. No, we don't need to use the resurrection serum on her, thank you very much. Back to bed you go. And of course, despite our food supply continuing to be an issue, Randy laughs at us and sends down yet another relation of our colonists. Why is everyone related to everyone? It is time to celebrate, so it is finally time to party, and what a party it is. So much so, a kid decides to join our encampment. I really need to learn to read the rewards to rituals more often. Oftentimes, we look at the positive side of things, ignorant to the world around us as we isolate ourselves in our squalor, and during these highs is when life likes to make a turn for the worse. Our negligence rears its ugly head and in turn, turns these moments of ecstasy into moments of dread. I have been ignoring the waste pack situation, and the pollution from the dumping grounds penetrates our base, wiping out our entire corn population right before harvest, starving us of some much needed sustenance. Immediately feeling the effects, I rush to get the pollution under control and to curb our harsh polluting policies, focusing too much on the short-term benefits and ignoring the longer-term consequences. Also, Boomlope decides to join. Hey, I can always use some free chem fuel, especially with my special method of waste disposal. With our way of life threatened and an important harvest destroyed, I would have to do some drastic actions, and until I can get some Glitterworld medication, Will spend an unspecified amount of time inside a cryosleep casket until the world is ready for his return. When to spice things up, Randy thought it would be fun to deploy a mechanoid cluster, except of course, it is a small cluster without a countdown or really anything to rush destroying it. It can sleep in dormancy, and it can be used as an extra security blanket. Maybe. The next priority is reclaiming our land back from the muck of despair, which will take a while. It was a major error on our parts, neglecting our world and paying the price for it. Adkins, the child recruit, constantly wishes to mine instead of learning, which is driving our colonists a little irritated. While my party was out grocery shopping, some raiders decided to drop in on us, literally catching us with our pants down. It was rather interesting juggling two maps at once. The raiding party took out the gang without much issue, but the home front is struggling a bit. Meme ends up getting down, but it wasn't long until the home front could get things under control. Well, the colony lives yet, and our raiders get a nice haul of potatoes. A double huzzah. Now it just comes the healing process, which a few stitches won't hurt. And with the colony starting to get its food production under control, at least for now, I figure it is time to start cooking the meals instead of relying on the pace crutch forever. The mood debuff when the expectations are high will be annoying. Also, the boomolopes on the map are starting to spontaneously combust from the pollution. That's good to know. The other major development as construction slows is I'm slowly starting to convert the dance hall to a lecture hall to keep the kid happy. Happy kids make for happy colonists. I have a nasty tendency when playing Rimworld. It is that I tend to think raids group up together, like when the works decide to barrel into the trap hallway. I thought it'd be a group of 3, dancing around the outside gate. Oh, and several boom rats decided it'd be cool to join in the fun. I tried having Itish fetch the boards for food, only for one to decide they never heard the bell and maul Itish. Just my bad luck. Well, at least the robots make for a nice distraction while I extract Chewy. Things were close, but at least Itish lives for another day, and the warg and boom rat meat will sustain our packaged meal supplies for a bit longer for raids. However, all the bites from the warg was enough for the furry to get scarier. Okay, time to bend over and take the rabies shot up the butt. Our steel supply is also very low, and about time Lobster joins up, being a very good mining colonist to help expedite the process. I also finished researching the ground penetrating scanner to perhaps help with the process. The pangs of desperation is once again calling. The siren's allure beckons with a healthy steel vein next to the mech cluster. Do I adhere to the call, risk my colonists for a guaranteed spot, or do I continue to gamble with the mines? These are the struggles Rimworld colonies must deal with to maintain survival. Oh wait, there's a giant vein I haven't dug up yet. Okay, we can skip the mechs for a bit longer. Before the 1-year anniversary of the colony, Drake sends out a distress signal, wishing to escape the wrath of 25 boom rats. Sorry mate, but you can deal with the explosive rodents yourself. I hope it's raining. With that, our steel problems are solved for the time being, the multi-analyzer is complete, and the scanner is underway. And to top it off, the trader came into range, where I was able to rescue Will from his eternal tomb and begin the important surgery to get him up and at it. It is the dawn of the 2nd year of the colony, and Randy thought it would be funny to cause a cold snap to freeze the colony over. Well, everything is going to have to be harvested. At least this isn't a super cold map, so the cold snaps aren't nearly as dangerous. And Istech decides to get mad at everyone. Way to be a killjoy. And Sammy tries to subsequently destroy the multi-analyzer. Okay Sammy, to timeout you go. I have noticed that for mountain-based standards, Randy has not been very proactive with the insect populations, but that changes with a simple quest for some small rewards to let a couple hives pop up in the base. Instead of bed bugs, the insectoids were nice enough to pop up in the failed sunroom. Sure, O'Connell gets battered and bruised, but he is able to at least stand his ground from the insectoids. At least the quest was simple enough. After the raid, Will decides to have a mental break in the mines. Normally it isn't that bad of a break, except it is a little freezing inside there. Okay, well, now it is your turn in the timeout zone. But this is all just comedy, a way to prolong suffering. Randy wasn't done quite yet, and the very next day, a larger infestation reared its ugly head. However, my colony is scattered in the mines in a less than advantageous position. O'Connell, already bruised, has to bear the might of the insectoids by himself, at least until the rest of the colonists could come in and rescue the downed soldier. Honestly, I was ready for something way worse. Funny how the same raid happens twice in the exact same area. Oh yeah, Will finally has a bed. I have been kinda neglecting him for a while. At this point, things really begin to slow down once again, which I'm okay with. I got a crematorium up and running so people aren't upset that they have to see a bunch of skeletons in my closet, and the mental breaks aren't that serious. Just Will hiding in his room. And I finally got my button gear and got some art going and some steel cabinets also. However, when things get dull, spice sometimes is in order. I decided to prioritize on the endgame, a way to permanently destroy the filth. I summoned forth the Diablos, and the first Diablos raid is of non-issue. So much so, I just let the giant mech barrel right through the spikes. Sure, it ends up blowing through most of them, but at least I don't have to intervene. And not too long afterwards, I unlocked the fabrication bench, so long term I won't have to deal with the annoying component issues. Just need components to finish building it first. Which is kind of funny because I already have the advanced components already. Back to yearning for the mines. A mad Toxilove decides it has had enough of our cleaning games and attacks the colony. It, doesn't go well for it. And that night, I had a second mech cluster formulate, one that will require us disposing of. Okay, everyone, out of bed. Skynet is at it again. Once everyone was in position, I had everyone focus on the big turret, which sets off a chain reaction that caused the entire cluster to go up in smoke. Honestly, I will take these victories where I can. Sure, Long was targeted by a Scyther, but the victory was a rather easy one. And in our victory, a caravan paid a visit to bestow upon us a gift of components, which I thought would go towards the bench, but I think my weaponry came first. And soon after, another quest appears, wanting us to house 8 refugees. I am barely keeping up with my colonists, plus my gut is telling me they'll betray us. I don't know. Being this close to Fire Emblem 3 Houses discourse has me on edge. Well, back to the component problem. When in doubt, strip mine the entire map, and sometimes you find your components in places you weren't paying attention to. Long is the hours toiled in this desperate hellscape. Sometimes the pawns wonder what is the meaning of all this. The struggle until one day the hell of the outside world claims another victim. But unbeknownst to the colonists, their efforts, no matter how small they are an important step towards overcoming the greater obstacles of life. Sure, they toil every day, but glancing at the once cornfield, it was a haven for the toxicity of our errors, now being reclaimed by the purities of hope. The wire is on fire. That explains the brownouts. At this point in the colony, progress has started to diminish to a crawl, with components being the one thing holding us back. And that was the thing for the next few days, progress being stagnated with all the pawns in a frantic hunt for components, searching the perpetual needle in a haystack for salvation. But with patience, the components were found, and the fabrication bench can finally be constructed, allowing for components to be purchased. Because nobody is able to make them. Just my luck. Well, at least traders help with more components for the time being, until a more sustainable source can be created. And during the night, I had a raid from 3 directions, which I am not overly concerned about, except as ZZ Top decides to poorly time its electrical malfunction. At first, I thought the raiders threw themselves upon the spike traps in vain, so let Itish out to snuff out the flames, without any way to defend himself. Orange looked to be a very potent melee combatant, being a melee-focused Asar, so I have means sent him to the recruitment office. But in my haste, I failed to take full care of the surroundings, and during the electrical fiasco, a fiend lined in wait, ambushing Itish on his return. Had Itish been smart about things, he should have went through the doors, not panic and flee away from safety. And from that ploy, Itish was cornered and downed and kidnapped. I had Meme drop the prisoner to focus on rescuing Itish. Meme isn't a very good shot, and it was a desperate chase to the river to save Itish. Thankfully, he was saved. However, it came at a cost. Since no one was around to tend to Orange's wounds, he sadly succumbed to his injuries and died. It was a price worth paying. And during this carnage, the rats decided to descend upon the colony like a plague. They were scattered and not very threatening, except they killed a constructoid, and I had to escort Meme and Itish back. After that stressful incident, things can finally calm down. The rats can wander into the traps, and other combatants can be tended to. And that is the beauty of Randy. Sometimes, he can stack multiple events upon each other for a truly stressful time. Power once again became an important factor, but at least now we have the resources needed to build another generator comfortably. In humanity's desperation to fix their mistakes, they instinctively shift the blame to others, to shirk their obligations to protect, and instead destroy. Instead of disposing the waste packs in a safe manner, the colonists began the tactic of waste pack dumping on other colonies. It is immoral, and probably illegal, but a valid tactic in keeping one pollutant down. Some boomalotes wandered onto the map, and if tamed will make for a sustainable chem fuel supply line, perfect for any biochemical warfare on the Impids. They also partake in the construction project for a larger monument. It will make for a nice set dressing at least, plus it comes with a fat stack of advanced components and Glitter World meds. Another important lesson in life is to never let negligence take hold. Putting off one danger till later will only put others in danger. Not related, but a small group of visitors, I assume 2 parents and a child, wandered onto the map for some trading, which I typically ignore. But on their way out, against their better judgment, I seriously question their mental faculties. I get the notification that the mechs woke out. Turns out, the family walked right into the mechanoids with bows and arrows. It goes as well as you think. The parents die, but at least Worm has the right idea in taking down the turret, but barely makes it out alive. I thought about leaving the mechs alone, but in the back of my mind, the human part of my brain is just screaming out, save them. Which is rather ironic given my disposition towards the vigilantes of Stendar. Okay crew, gather your gear, it's rescuing time. I first tried to have Sammy snipe the turret from afar, but it outguns poor Sammy. You did good, champ, now get some rest. At least things are pretty simple. Having O'Connell take the focus fire of the beam tester on and Scorcher, while the rest of my crew can take out the turret from behind cover. Honestly, the plan works like a charm, helps that it was raining, and without any major casualties. On our end. I rescue the child and shelter the orphan in the ICU, so maybe their wounds may heal, though the mental scars will remain. It is now the dead of summer, and the only thing that Randy finds finer than the hellish weather coming soon is the heat wave. Okay, time to get the wood wet again. I seriously need to find a writer without a fascination with innuendos. Well, a few days later, the monument is finally finished to be an eyesore for generations to come. But at the very least, with our efforts and a greater consciousness towards our surrounding, our base is finally clean and we begin expanding outwards with pollution pumps. But since pain is the spice of life, I summon the war cream. The war cream. Yes, I love cream on my war. I summon the war queen, the second roadblock towards the final plan. I send everyone up to the northern choke point, just for the queen to second guess herself and go south. Okay game, you do you. The queen is good about destroying trap hallways with her drones, and midway through her slow advances, Randy thought it'd be fun to have a volcano erupt. Well, there goes the growing season. At least with concentrated fire, the War Queen is actually really easy, and all that remains is the progenitor of humanity's hubris. But I have some plans first. Oh wait, have to put those plans on hold. Todd Howard discovered I'm not challenged running his games, and in retaliation, sent a toxic fallout towards the map. And during this whole fiasco, I also had toxic smog envelop the map too. Glad to know Randy absolutely hates plants. Well, in the rush to salvage whatever flora I could, I immediately harvested every plant I had grown to a degree, and brought the boomalotes indoors. Don't need the slopes to go boom now. Life continued as normal, just with a heavy Fallout 3 filter over the screen. I know it isn't the best idea to leave people outside in the pollution, but they will be growing the cancer anyways. I begin my subjugation of the imps by donating my waste packs to their pristine bases. Sure, I will have retaliatory raids from the fire-breathing imps, but they are tribal, I have spike walls, let them come. That sounds horrid. I also converted the first monument to an animal shed. Hopefully the Imperials won't mind. And during the midst, when the Toxlope decides to self-tame. As much as I would love to have portable fart clouds, they don't produce gasoline, so I turn it back to nature. I think we have enough toxicity for the time being. At least some good news on the upgrade front. Crowbar has now graduated to charged rifles, which will help in some upcoming raids. Wanting to get my colony away from the muck, for a breath of fresh air, I sent them all out on a simple raiding mission to a camp to the north that is a part of a side quest. Progress around the base has stiffened, so some variety is in order. The base is pretty cute. Too bad it won't last. Long Dist ended up taking a beating and was down. I noticed Mitsuya had some decent stats, namely the brawler trait, and I was looking for someone to wield my other persona weapon, so they will do nicely. Yeah, I kidnapped a politician. YouTube, please don't take that out of context. Things are progressing so slowly on the home front, I end up smoothing all the walls, at least to keep everyone happy. And while escorting Mitsuya back, Long decides to drop the prisoner on the ground and vent her frustrations on walls. At least before getting angry, please make sure to take any dependents to safety first. And with our colony on the growth again, I figured an expansion is in order once again. I mean, it's not like we have anything more important to do right now. We also get a helpful quest to harbor Alina from a bunch of imps. Sure, that is a lot of imps, but we also don't have any good social pawns. Plus, I can always use some helpful test subjects. I mean, it's not like we have anything more pressing going on at the moment, so sure, come bring your friends. There was one imp that looked promising, so I tried tending him. They got up and tried to fight back. One of the helpful words of advice this video is trying to get at is to accept help when you can, when the going gets tough. But a good whack on the skull is enough to solve the problem. Too well. And there are more willing participants soon enough. Soon enough, I have high magic tech unlocked and all the fun toys that comes with. But we may now be able to summon our final obstacle, and our colony is ready to end this pollution threat once and for all. Just waiting on when it is more palpable to hang outside for long periods of time. The pollution continues to persist for an alarmingly extended period of time, which makes the anticipation for ending the run before day 100 more stressful. We also get a quest to accept more refugees, which I'm torn on accepting, but we will see. But first, a farming site opened up nearby, which contains a bunch of rice. And with our food stores mostly for the animals starting to dry up, it is a very appetizing option to take. The rage of the toxicity was enough for all the toxope on the map to go mad and throw themselves into the spike hallways. I will let them all exfoliate themselves on the traps and wait for things to air out. At least I am glad we got more free food to last us a bit longer. A very nice boon from Randy, who for the most part has been playing things tame. A combat supplier also paid a visit, which serves mostly as a way to dispose some junk weapons before I beckon forth more imps to my traps. After nearly 10 days of stagnation, the pollution finally lifts, and now our colony may begin the process of regrowth. And it's finally time to beckon forth the Apocryton, 10 days from the deadline. The Apocryton, a vile being created from the sadism of mankind, a machine that knows the pain it inflicts and revels in it. A being created by those who discarded their humanity, subjecting their lands to corruption for the sake of progress. The progress of one at the cost of everything else. While the Apocryton decides to launch its invasion, while Atkins is out in the middle of nowhere, so he can hide in the cave and pray they don't come after him. The rest of the party, to the firing line. Meanwhile, during the advances, a group of travelers is approaching, which might help, but probably not. My main strategy with dealing with Apocrytons is really simple. Let the enemies funnel themselves through the kill box, while I have my melee combatants flank the backlines. The strategy honestly works like a charm, and before all the mechs can be resurrected, O'Connell and Itich land the final blow, slaying this monstrosity for good, and the chip is deciphered. Now comes the slow grind towards the waste pack disposal, but the vestige of a bygone era has been slain, and now progress can be made towards cleaning up the past and walking forth towards a brighter future. And just in time, as a massive imp raiding party has joined the fray. I just focused on the southern front, asked some Imperial debt collectors to handle things up north. I just had everyone pause what they were doing and assemble to the south. The north cleaned up with efficiency, and thankfully I had enough spike traps to finish off the raiders, and with the escapees, well, they all bunch up at a choke point, so this turns into a training session. Once the dust settles, only one raider survived the onslaught, which was unwaveringly loyal. Meaning, I don't have to convert him to my cause. Don't worry, if we use our brains, mostly Maviov's, we can solve this problem and come out with a nice solution. Mostly for me. The war crime part was because I needed a fabric core to help with my crafting projects, and research can begin on the waste pack atomizer. The atomizer takes the longest to research, so I'll be at the bench for quite a while, and my body will be strangled by the plasteel in the future. I don't end up deep drilling at the plasteel spot because I have the memory of a goldfish. Wanting some help and some spice, I finally remembered about the refugees. Sure, they are alright, they won't be around for long, so I won't need to worry much about betrayal. And not long after the group joins, Mitsuya also joins, and I figure as a trophy for all this time survived, she can wield the remaining persona weapon. Sure, she will get hungry more often, but it is probably one of the best melee weapons I can get at this point that isn't already equipped. The psychic drone going on really isn't helping things at all, and during the lull, I figured some final action is in order, so I sent out a small caravan thinking this final settlement would be a cakewalk as usual. Also, some imp thought they could try to rob the caravan. What a joke. I really need to stop underestimating how annoying grenade-lobbing pigs are. Had to lure out the knife-wielding pigs with my melee combatants, but the jungles make for a rough time avoiding the blast radius. At least one grenader ends up killing two of their own, so that's a plus. The encounter took a lot of microing to succeed. Everyone was badly wounded, but at least we can come out on top. Barely. All for a fat sack of rice. Honestly, not worth it. And in the last few days of this colony, our colonists began pushing back further against the pollution of the world, expanding their cleaning operation further out from the base, and the environment began to turn satisfying. The wastepack atomizer has finished researching, and came a waiting game until we can secure some plasteel. If only I remembered about the mining spot to the northwest. The cleanup was a group effort, with everyone not on duty helping with the process. Love was even in the air. Slowly we have transitioned away from automation, relying more on the hands-on approach from the yesteryear, which proved more efficient. Randy thought a plague would be funny on the boomalopes, tending to them before they go boom. We have the resources, so it's not of high concern. And in an effort to finish off the pollution once and for all, I had the entire map be ordered for a total scrubbing. Our colony graduated from the dependence of nutrient paste, returning to a natural form of meal consumption. A trader visited on the 100th day, and with all the plasteel needed, the wasteback atomizer could be completed, and now the healing process can begin. It is unknown how long the process of healing will take. The world is still in agony from the hubris of humanity's past. The effects are felt far and wide, but nature is slowly healing from its deep-seated scars. It may take years, perhaps generations to overcome the blight, but with the help of everyone, slowly the taint can be purified, and the squalor of nature might someday return to the world, one tile at a time. No matter how bleak the situation is, just so long as we cling on to that oasis of hope, one day it shall overcome the desert of despair. This has been Orpheolus. Hopefully you all enjoyed this different video. I wanted to try something new from a storyteller perspective, and hopefully you all enjoy this run. If you want to see me talk more Rimworld playthroughs, including how long these runs should strive to be, do let me know. I just did 100 days as a test run of Rimworld, but I might be down to do full escape runs should I survive that long. Though these runs do take a while to make. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to drop a like, subscribe for more masochism, and any other ways to torture myself, leave them down below. This has been Orpheolus, and I'll see you all in the next one.